Toxic people are everywhere, in families, at work, online, even in our closest circles. They drain your energy, distort your reality, and shake your sense of peace. But here's the truth. You don't need to fight them, fix them, or fear them. You just need to understand them and learn how to stand strong without losing your soul. Stoicism gives us that power. It's not about building walls of anger. It's about building walls of clarity. It's not about fighting back. It's about not letting them in. Because the strongest move isn't always confrontation. Sometimes it's silence. Sometimes it's detachment. Sometimes it's choosing yourself quietly, again and again, without drama. In this episode, we'll explore 13 clever, grounded, and powerful ways to deal with toxic people, using timeless Stoic principles. These strategies will help you protect your peace, reclaim your energy, and walk through chaos without becoming chaotic. And no matter who you're dealing with, you will walk away stronger, wiser, and more in control. If this message resonates with you, don't forget to subscribe to Stoic Reflections, hit that like button, and let us know in the comments which tactic you're ready to apply today. Let's build that calm, one choice at a time. 1. Identifying and understanding the toxic threat. Before you can protect your peace, you have to recognize what's threatening it. And in the case of toxic people, it's rarely loud. It's not always obvious. It creeps in through subtle patterns, emotional manipulation, guilt tripping, constant negativity, passive aggression, control disguised as care. These behaviors aren't always explosive. Often they're draining, quietly, repeatedly. That's why the Stoics' first weapon is awareness, because you can't defend against something you won't name. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." But toxic people work by reversing that truth. They distract you from your own mind. They make you question your reactions, doubt your instincts, feel small for feeling anything at all. And once they've got you spinning in confusion, they've taken control, not with force, but with subtle erosion of your clarity. The Stoic doesn't call every difficult person toxic. They look for patterns. Is this person consistently draining your energy without accountability? Do they twist the truth in their favor? Are they quick to blame? Slow to take responsibility? Do they leave you feeling anxious, guilty, or off-center after every interaction? If yes, then it's not just a difficult personality. It's a toxic influence. And no philosophy, no mindset can bloom in poison soil. Awareness means you no longer personalize their behavior. You stop thinking, "What did I do wrong?" and start asking, "What pattern am I seeing here?" You stop accepting chaos as your responsibility to fix. You stop absorbing their emotional instability like it's your fault. And that's when you begin to reclaim your mind. Stoicism trains you to observe without attachment. You see someone's behavior clearly, but you don't get tangled in it. You understand the signs without getting pulled into emotional games. You realize that some people don't want peace, they want control. And their goal is not to connect, it's to dominate. When you stop reacting automatically and start reflecting intentionally, they lose power over you. This first step is simple, but not easy, because it requires honesty. It requires seeing people not as you hope they are, but as they are. It requires letting go of fantasy and embracing fact, and that takes courage. But it's also the beginning of freedom, because once you identify the toxic threat, you're no longer stuck trying to explain away the chaos. You're finally ready to guard your peace like a Stoic. This is your foundation. Know what you're dealing with. Don't sugarcoat it. Don't overanalyze it. Just see it. And from that clarity, every other tactic becomes stronger. Because the truth you recognize is the freedom you reclaim. 2. Fortify your walls. Once you've identified the toxic presence, the next Stoic move isn't to attack, it's to fortify. You don't need to explode, explain, or exhaust yourself trying to change someone. What you need is to build internal and external boundaries that guard your peace without drama. Think of yourself like a Stoic emperor guarding his citadel. Your mind is the stronghold. Your time, your energy, your emotional focus. These are the gates. and not everyone deserves access. Toxic people test boundaries constantly. That's how they operate. They push small limits to see how far they can go. They guilt you when you pull away. They confuse concern with control. But a Stoic doesn't defend themselves emotionally. They defend themselves structurally, through calm, firm, consistent boundaries that don't require explanation. Epictetus said, "No person is free who is not master of themselves." And mastering yourself includes controlling who and what you allow near your peace. So how do you build that wall? Start by making clear internal decisions about what you will and won't tolerate. Decide, I will not allow emotional manipulation into my space. I will not over-explain my choices to people who refuse to respect them. These aren't threats, they're standards. Then express those standards simply, calmly, without aggression. You're not starting a fight, you're holding a line. Let's be clear. Boundaries don't make you cold. They make you clear. You're not rejecting people. You're protecting your alignment. A toxic person may accuse you of being distant, selfish, or unforgiving. But that's because the moment you stop allowing disrespect, their game starts to fail. And that's not your burden. That's just proof that the boundary works. Also, remember, boundaries are not a one-time conversation. They are a lifestyle. You may have to reinforce them again and again. But every time you do it without losing your calm, you grow stronger. Because the Stoic doesn't let others decide how they respond. You don't give your peace away because someone demands attention. You stay rooted, unbothered, grounded in your values. And when you build those emotional walls, something powerful happens. You stop living in reaction mode. You stop being surprised by their behavior. You stop explaining your worth. You start showing it, not by fighting, but by standing tall in the space you've claimed for yourself. So take this seriously. Fortify your peace like your life depends on it. Because in many ways it does. Toxic people may still knock on the gates. But if those gates are guarded by discipline, clarity, and calm detachment, they won't get far. You don't have to destroy anyone to protect yourself. You just have to stop letting their chaos in. That's Stoic strength. Quiet, unshakable, and yours to build. 3. Become uninteresting to the emotional barbarian. Toxic people thrive on reaction. They feed off your energy, especially your emotional responses. Whether it's anger, guilt, tears, frustration, or even just defending yourself, every reaction is fuel for their fire. That's why one of the most powerful Stoic strategies for dealing with them is to become, quite simply, boring, emotionally unavailable, unreactive, like a rock. This is known as the gray rock method, and it's a method Stoicism would silently endorse. Epictetus reminds us, it's not things themselves that disturb us, but our opinions about them. And when it comes to toxic people, your opinion, the meaning you assign to their behavior, is what gives them power over you. They provoke and you engage. They insult and you defend. They create drama and you dive in, hoping to resolve it. But what if you stopped showing up to the chaos? What if you took your energy off the table completely? To the emotional barbarian, someone who invades peace and spreads disorder, nothing is more frustrating than your calm indifference. When you stop reacting, you starve them. You disrupt their pattern, you confuse them, and they begin to lose interest, not because you won, but because they lost access to what they were really after: your attention, your pain, your energy. Becoming emotionally boring doesn't mean becoming numb. It means becoming disciplined. You still feel, you just choose not to show it. You don't entertain their provocations. You don't explain your every decision. You don't defend your peace to someone who has no intention of respecting it. You become predictable in your calm, stable in your silence, and that, ironically, becomes your power. This tactic can be uncomfortable at first, especially if you're used to defending yourself or trying to explain things to people who clearly don't listen. But the more you practice, the more you see the truth. Toxic people lose control when they lose your reaction. They need your emotional availability to manipulate you. And when that access is gone, they often back off or expose themselves more clearly. Stoicism isn't about emotional suppression, it's about emotional command. It teaches you to stop being a puppet on someone else's string, to stop dancing to every insult, to stop justifying your peace to someone who benefits from disturbing it. When you become gray rock, plain, dull, uninteresting in your reactions, you protect your spirit without ever raising your voice. So next time someone toxic tries to bait you, don't bite. Just let your calmness answer. No argument, no defense, just neutrality. Because your greatest power isn't found in proving your point, it's in making their game so ineffective they have no choice but to walk away. That's the Stoic way. No drama, no weakness, no access. Just stillness, discipline, and quiet strength. 4. The broken record technique. Toxic people are relentless not because they don't hear you, but because they don't care. They test your limits not out of confusion, but calculation. They want to see if your no really means no. If your boundaries will bend with just a little guilt, just a little persistence. And when you start explaining, justifying, or softening your stance, they win. That's why one of the most effective Stoic responses is not emotional escalation, but calm repetition. Over and over and over again. This is the broken record technique, and it's exactly what it sounds like. Choose your boundary, then repeat it with the same firm tone each time it's challenged. Not louder, not harsher, just steady, neutral, stoic, like a scratched vinyl stuck on one message. No, I'm not available for that. I understand, but this is my decision. I'm not comfortable with that. You say it once, then again, and again, until they realize you will not be moved. Epictetus said, "Keep your attention focused entirely on what is truly your own concern. Your concern is not how they respond. Your concern is how consistent you remain." A toxic person thrives on finding cracks in your boundaries. Emotional cracks, conversational cracks, cracks where they can wedge in manipulation. But when you become a verbal fortress, unmoving, unbothered, they start to lose interest because they're not getting what they want, an opening. It's tempting to think you owe someone a detailed explanation when setting limits, but you don't. You owe yourself protection, and the truth is, the more you explain, the more material a toxic person has to twist. They'll use your words against you. They'll weaponize your empathy. They'll search for the part of your reasoning that feels unsure and target it. The broken record removes all that. It offers no new angles, no loopholes, just clarity. This doesn't mean being rude. Stoicism is never about cruelty. It means being firm with grace, confident without confrontation. It means choosing a calm tone and holding it, especially when someone tries to shake it. And yes, they will accuse you of being cold, uncooperative, unfair. But that's not a reflection of you. It's a reaction to their losing control. With time, your consistency becomes a message louder than any argument. I cannot be worn down. I will not negotiate my peace. I don't need your approval to stay aligned with my values. That's power. That's mastery. That's the Stoic way. So the next time a toxic person tries to get through your defenses, don't raise your voice. Don't change your story. Just stay the broken record and watch how quickly the noise fades when there's nothing left to argue with. Calm repetition is quiet resistance, and it's one of the strongest moves you can make. 5. Don't take the bait. Toxic people are experts at emotional fishing. They throw out hooks, insults, passive-aggressive remarks, guilt trips, even fake compliments laced with control, and wait to see if you'll bite. And most people do. They respond, they defend, they try to explain, and in doing so, they fall straight into the trap, because that's the whole point of the bait, to pull you into their chaos, where they control the narrative and you lose your peace. But Stoicism teaches something different. It teaches you to observe without attachment. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, choose not to be harmed, and you won't feel harmed. Don't feel harmed, and you haven't been. This isn't about denial, it's about refusal. You don't deny that someone is being cruel or manipulative. You simply refuse to let it drag you down from your own mental high ground. You choose to see it for what it is, bait, and you walk past it without a twitch. The moment you react emotionally to their trap, they win. Because now the conversation is no longer about what they said or did, it's about your reaction to it. They flip the story. Suddenly you're too sensitive. You're overreacting. You're always looking for a fight. But when you don't take the bait, they're left holding a hook with no catch, no fuel, no emotional leverage. That's when your power shows. Not taking the bait doesn't mean you accept disrespect. It means you neutralize it. You become so calm, so steady, so internally grounded that nothing they do moves you off center. This isn't passive tolerance, it's active self-discipline. It's choosing clarity over confusion, presence over provocation. And when you do that consistently, the toxic person loses interest. Not because they've changed, but because their tactics no longer work. Imagine standing in front of someone trying to push all your buttons, but none of them react. Nothing turns on. Nothing flares up. Eventually, they stop pushing. That's Stoic power. You remain the mountain, unmoved by the storm. This skill takes practice. You'll slip. You'll feel the urge to set the record straight or get the last word. But each time you resist that urge, you strengthen your emotional muscle. You send a message, not to them, but to yourself. I don't need to react to stay in control. I already am in control. So the next time someone throws bait your way, pause, breathe. Ask yourself, is this worth my peace? And if the answer is no, keep walking. Let them fish in silence. Your mind is not a pawn for their drama. Your energy is not a prize for their manipulation. And your peace is not a reaction. It's a decision, a Stoic decision, made every day, every moment, every time you choose not to bite. 6. The art of the non-reaction. There's a power that comes from saying nothing. Not because you're afraid, not because you're passive, but because you've chosen to rise above. That power is called non-reaction. And in the world of Stoicism, it's one of the sharpest tools you can carry when dealing with toxic people. They want your words, they want your anger, they want your explanation, your defense, your vulnerability. But what they don't know how to handle is your silence, your stillness, your refusal to play. Seneca wrote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it." And when you waste it reacting to provocations, explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you, or trying to fix conversations that were never built on truth, you're handing over your peace to someone who never earned it. Non-reaction is not silence out of fear. It's silence out of strategy. It's your refusal to energize nonsense, to validate dysfunction, to give a platform to manipulation. Because not every insult deserves a response. Not every lie deserves your correction. Not every game deserves a player. When you react to every provocation, you become a puppet, tied to the emotions and intentions of someone else. But when you pause and choose not to engage, you reclaim your strings, and suddenly you're the one in control. This doesn't mean bottling things up or pretending to be unaffected. It means giving yourself the space to choose your response. It means saying, I don't need to respond to this right now, or at all. It means recognizing that some people use conflict as a form of control, and the only way to stop the game is to not play it. Non-reaction works because it interrupts the cycle. Toxic people operate in a rhythm, provoke, react, escalate. But when you take the second step away, when you respond with calm, or not at all, you break their rhythm. And in that pause, you create space. Space for clarity, space for peace, space for you. Practicing non-reaction also teaches you how strong you become. Because anyone can snap, anyone can argue, but not everyone can hold their center when the storm hits. That's where Stoicism lives, not in pretending life is calm, but in choosing calm anyway. So the next time someone says something to poke, prod, or provoke, don't give them your energy. Give them nothing. No reaction, no explanation. Just calm eyes and a grounded heart. Because your silence isn't weakness, it's mastery. It says, you don't control me. You don't shape me. I decide how I show up in this world. That's the art of the non-reaction. And it's an art that once mastered, turns you into the calm in the center of any storm. Let others shout. Let them spin. You remain still, not because you're ignoring it, but because you've already won. 7. Limit your exposure. You don't owe anyone unlimited access to your energy. Not your coworker, not your sibling, not your old friend from high school, especially not someone who poisons your peace every time they're around. One of the most powerful Stoic moves is not confrontation. It's distance. Quiet, intentional, unapologetic space between you and the person who consistently drains your clarity. Marcus Aurelius said, "The tranquility that comes when you stop caring what they say or think or do. Only what you do. And sometimes what you need to do is walk away. Not forever. Not with anger, but with wisdom. Because exposure is influence. The more you're around chaos, the more chaos feels normal. The more you absorb negativity, the more it shapes your inner dialogue. And the more you tolerate disrespect, the more your self-worth begins to shift without you even realizing it. Limiting exposure doesn't have to mean cutting people off. It simply means choosing wisely. If you can't remove a toxic person from your life entirely, maybe it's a colleague, a parent, or a partner you're in transition from, you can still reclaim how much time, energy, and emotion you give them. You can stop replying instantly. You can leave messages on read. You can step out of rooms when tension rises. You can say, "I'm not going to have this conversation right now," and mean it. That's not rude. That's self-respect. Toxic people often rely on proximity to maintain their control. They need to be in your ear, in your space, in your emotional field. But when you pull back, even a few feet, they feel the shift. They can't reach you the same way. And that's when their games start to lose power, because power needs closeness, and peace needs room to breathe. Stoicism isn't about ghosting everyone. It's about becoming intentional with your environment. Seneca wrote about how the wrong crowd can undo a disciplined mind. The same applies here. Your energy is shaped by what surrounds it. So if someone constantly stirs up confusion, criticism, drama, or doubt, it's your job to manage your exposure to that influence. You'll feel guilty at first, especially if you're someone who cares deeply. But here's the truth. Protecting your peace doesn't make you a bad person. It makes you a balanced one. Because once you reclaim your space, your thoughts get clearer. Your emotions become quieter. You're no longer walking on eggshells. You're walking on solid ground. So create distance, not out of hate, but out of clarity, out of love for your future self, out of commitment to your mental health. Let the toxic presence shrink to the edges of your life. You don't need to announce it. Just adjust your exposure, bit by bit, boundary by boundary, until their chaos no longer reaches your calm. That's not avoidance, it's evolution, and it's one of the most stoic decisions you'll ever make. 8. Build your support system. No Stoic walks alone, that's a myth. Yes, we train our minds to be resilient. Yes, we learn to master our emotions. But even Marcus Aurelius, emperor, philosopher, and model of inner strength, surrounded himself with mentors, friends, and fellow thinkers. Because the truth is, you need a support system, especially when dealing with toxic people. Why? Because their chaos isolates you. Their tactics make you doubt yourself. And isolation is where toxicity thrives. Support is where clarity is restored. Toxic individuals want you off balance. They want you second-guessing your instincts. And the more disconnected you are from healthy relationships, the easier it is for their voice to become the only voice you hear. That's why building a circle of grounded, virtuous people is not a luxury. It's a necessity. In Stoic terms, it's your phalanx, the shield wall that holds you upright when the enemy presses in. Surround yourself with those who don't just agree with you, but remind you of who you are when you forget. People who live by virtue, not gossip. People who challenge you to think clearly, not react impulsively. People who believe in your peace, your progress, and your path, even when toxic voices try to blur it. Seneca put it clearly, Associate with people who are likely to improve you. That doesn't mean perfection. It means alignment. When you spend time with people who value self-awareness, emotional discipline, honesty, and calm, you start to reflect those same qualities back. And you begin to see toxic patterns more clearly, not because you read about them, but because you've seen the difference between real connection and manipulative attachment. Your support system doesn't need to be big, it just needs to be strong. Even one good friend who listens without judgment, even one mentor who reminds you of your strength, even one community, online or offline, built around truth and growth. That's enough to break the illusion that you're alone or broken, because you're not. You're just caught in someone else's storm. And storms are easier to navigate when you're not the only one steering the ship. Also, let your support system include yourself. Journal your thoughts. Reflect honestly. Meditate in silence. Revisit Stoic wisdom. These are tools you carry with you, even when no one else is around. They're reminders that clarity lives inside you. And toxic people only win when you forget how to access it. So build your wall of strength, not out of fear, but out of intention. Put people in your life who feed your focus, not your fear, who reflect your values, not your wounds, who hold space for your growth, not your guilt. That's not selfish. It's smart. Because in a world full of emotional vampires, your inner circle becomes your sanctuary. And when the toxic voices rise again, your support system will be there, not to fight your battles, but to remind you, you're not crazy, you're not weak, and you're not alone. You're just getting stronger, and you're doing it step by Stoic step with the right people by your side. 9. Prioritize self-care. You can't pour from an empty cup. That's simple but often forgotten, especially when dealing with toxic people who demand so much of your emotional and mental energy. Stoicism isn't about relentless endurance or emotional suppression. It's about balance, discipline, and renewal. Taking care of yourself is not indulgence, it's essential. Like a Stoic warrior sharpening his sword before battle, self-care sharpens your mind and shields your peace. Toxic people thrive on your exhaustion. When you're tired, reactive, or overwhelmed, their chaos hits harder. Your boundaries weaken, your clarity fades, and suddenly you're more vulnerable to manipulation, guilt, and emotional drain. But when you prioritize rest, meaningful activities, nature, and solitude, you renew your emotional armor. You refill your cup so you can give when you want and protect when you need. Marcus Aurelius understood this well. He wrote about the importance of withdrawing when overwhelmed, reflecting in solitude, and connecting with nature's calm. Those weren't luxuries. They were necessities for a balanced mind. You can't expect to maintain your virtue and calm if you're running on empty. Self-care is the foundation for every other Stoic practice. Self-care looks different for everyone. It might be meditation, journaling, exercise, a walk in the park, or simply saying no to a social invitation when your energy is low. It's about tuning in to what your mind and body need, not what others demand. It's choosing activities that restore your peace and strengthen your focus. When you make self-care a priority, you're not retreating, you're preparing. Preparing your mind to face toxicity with strength instead of fatigue. Preparing your heart to respond with calm instead of chaos. Preparing your spirit to stay aligned no matter the storm. Remember, self-care isn't selfish, it's strategic. Because the best way to protect yourself from toxic influence is to be whole, rested, grounded, ready. And when you're in that state, no one's toxicity can pull you off your path. So honor your needs. Listen to your limits. Invest in your renewal daily, because your peace, your power, and your progress depend on it. That's not just advice. That's Stoic wisdom lived. 10. Remember, it's not about you. One of the hardest but most liberating lessons when dealing with toxic people is this. Their toxicity is not a reflection of your worth. Toxic behavior reveals their own inner chaos, fears, and wounds, not your value or character. Stoicism teaches us to detach from external judgments and emotional storms, to hold fast to our inner virtue regardless of what others do or say. Marcus Aurelius wrote, When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. Not to depress you, but to prepare you, to remind you that difficult people are part of life's fabric, and their behavior speaks more about them than about you. When you internalize this, you stop personalizing every slight, every manipulation, every act of control. This mindset shift is crucial because when you think toxic behavior is about you, you carry unnecessary guilt, anger, or self-doubt. You try to fix yourself, to prove yourself, to win their approval. But the Stoic doesn't waste energy on that. They recognize that some people will always be difficult and some will always seek control. And that's their problem, not yours. Detachment doesn't mean coldness or indifference. It means objectivity. It means seeing a toxic person as someone struggling with their own nature, not as a judge of your character. This frees you from emotional entanglement. You no longer need to defend yourself to the unreasonable or explain your worth to the ungrateful. By remembering that it's not about you, you reclaim your peace. You refuse to internalize chaos that belongs elsewhere. And you choose to focus on your own virtue, your own growth, and your own calm. Because your value is grounded in your own integrity, not in how someone else treats you. So when toxicity rises, breathe and remind yourself, this is their storm, not mine. You are free to walk through it with clarity, strength, and dignity. That's the Stoic way to survive toxicity, rooted, resilient, and unapologetically yourself. 11. Don't try to fix them. One of the biggest traps when dealing with toxic people is believing you can fix them. That if you just say the right words, show enough patience, or care hard enough, they'll change. But Stoicism teaches us a vital truth. You can only control your own mind and actions, not anyone else's. Trying to fix someone else's toxicity is like trying to control the wind. It's exhausting, futile, and often makes things worse. Epictetus reminded us, make the best use of what is in your power and take the rest as it happens. The behavior, mindset, and choices of others are outside your power. No amount of reasoning, pleading, or sacrifice will shift a toxic person who isn't ready or willing to change. And when you try, you risk losing your own peace, wasting emotional energy, and becoming entangled in their chaos. Instead, focus on your own path. Lead by example. Show strength, calm, and virtue in how you handle difficulties. Protect your boundaries without trying to persuade or fix. Practice patience with yourself for not being able to change others. And accept that sometimes the wisest thing you can do is to step back, not to save, but to preserve. This mindset frees you from the burden of responsibility for another's growth. It allows you to love and care without codependency or sacrifice of your self-worth. It reminds you that your role is not to be their therapist, rescuer, or judge, but to be yourself, grounded and whole. When you stop trying to fix the unfixable, you gain clarity. You conserve your strength, you reclaim your peace, and you open the door for healthier relationships, both with others and within yourself. So let go of the fixer role. You don't need to solve their problems to protect your soul. That's not failure. That's wisdom, and it's one of the most powerful Stoic truths to carry when dealing with toxicity. 12. When to walk away. Sometimes, despite all your efforts, despite all your boundaries and calm strategies, the toxicity remains. It festers, it drains, it erodes your peace. And in those moments, the greatest act of Stoic wisdom is knowing when to walk away. Walking away isn't defeat, it's an assertion of your highest value, your inner freedom. Marcus Aurelius taught that we should not waste time on what harms our soul. Reject your sense of injury, and the injury itself disappears. But rejection doesn't always mean enduring. Sometimes it means removal. If a relationship, a job, or an environment repeatedly violates your peace and stifles your virtue, it's your duty to step away. Not out of anger or bitterness, but out of clarity and self-respect. Walking away takes courage. It requires you to face uncertainty, discomfort, and sometimes loneliness. But Stoicism reminds us that these are temporary and far less damaging than the slow poison of staying trapped. By choosing to leave what no longer serves your growth, you reclaim space to cultivate calm, strength, and wisdom. This choice is not impulsive. It's a measured decision made after reflection and repeated attempts to engage with integrity. It's the acknowledgement that some people or situations are beyond your control and influence. And that's okay. Protecting your soul is not selfish, it's necessary. Remember, freedom is the ultimate Stoic goal, and sometimes freedom means walking away. Not to abandon, but to preserve. Not to quit, but to prioritize. Not to lose, but to gain peace. So listen closely to your inner compass. When the weight becomes unbearable, when boundaries are ignored, when your virtue is compromised, have the strength to walk away. Because in that choice lies your power, your peace, and your true freedom. 13. Forgive yourself. Dealing with toxic people is exhausting, and it's easy to carry guilt, resentment, or self-blame long after the interaction ends. Maybe you think you should have done more, said something different, or stayed longer. But Stoicism teaches us that forgiveness, especially self-forgiveness, is a radical act of reclaiming your emotional freedom. Seneca reminds us, to err is human, to forgive, divine. But forgiveness isn't about excusing the behavior of others. It's about releasing the hold their toxicity has on your mind and heart. It's about letting go of the toxic story you tell yourself about what happened, why it happened, and how it reflects on you. Forgiving yourself means acknowledging that you did your best with the knowledge and strength you had at the time. It means accepting your imperfections without harsh judgment. It means understanding that staying in guilt or resentment only keeps you chained to the very toxicity you want to escape. This is not easy. Forgiveness takes courage. It's not a single moment, but a process, a daily choice to move forward. And when you practice it, you create space for healing, for growth, for peace. The Stoic knows that holding on to resentment is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to suffer. Forgiving yourself is an act of self-care, of wisdom, and of freedom. It clears the way for you to live fully in the present, free from the burdens of past mistakes or toxic entanglements. So when you find yourself trapped in regret or guilt, pause, breathe. Remind yourself that you are human, you are learning, and most importantly, you are worthy of peace. Forgive yourself not because they deserve it, but because you deserve to be free. That is the final Stoic step in dealing with toxicity. To release the past, honor your journey, and reclaim your power, whole, strong, and unburdened. And toxic people can infiltrate our lives in ways that slowly drain our peace, distort our reality, and challenge our very sense of self. But Stoicism offers us a path, not to fight endlessly or carry their chaos, but to stand firm, clear, and unshakable. By recognizing toxicity, setting firm boundaries, practicing calm detachment, and knowing when to walk away, we protect what truly matters, our inner freedom and tranquility. Remember, dealing with toxic people is not about changing them. It's about mastering yourself. It's about choosing peace over conflict, wisdom over reaction, and growth over guilt. If this episode helped you reclaim your clarity or gave you tools to protect your peace, please subscribe to Stoic Reflections, like this video, and share your experiences in the comments. Your journey toward calm strength starts with awareness, and every step forward is progress.